Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're here in the matter of Scott Lee Peterson, case number SC055500A. May I have counsel state their appearances, please, starting with the counsel for the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Paula Mitchell, Los Angeles Innocence Project for Scott Peterson.
Hillary Mormon, Los Angeles Innocence Project for Scott Peterson.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Victoria Vasquez, Golden State of California, District Attorney's Office.
Birgit Flanagan from the District Attorney's Office, Stanislaus County.
David Harris for the people. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Honor Rice for the people.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Peterson is present via Zoom. First of all, Mr. Peterson, let me confirm, can you hear me and can you see me? Well, let me turn on my camera first of all. And we will unmute. Can we unmute Mr. Peterson so he can confirm that he can hear and see the proceedings, please? Mr. Peterson appears to still be muted. Can somebody at the Mule Creek's end please unmute so that we can confirm that he can both see and hear? I see Mr. Peterson trying to unmute, so give me a thumbs up if you can see us and hear us, please. Do we have the number from Mule Creek, and can we call somebody and see if they can? Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Peterson. Can you both see and hear the proceedings, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, I can. Thank you.
All right. And do we have your consent to proceed via Zoom this morning?
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. So the record should reflect Mr. Peterson has consented to appearing via Zoom. He is appearing electronically from Mule Creek State Prison. Okay, the court had requested counsel to be present this morning for a status conference. There are 3 motions pending before the court. Motion for post-conviction discovery under Penal Code Section 1054.9, a motion for post-conviction DNA testing, and a motion to seal court pleadings that have been filed in relation to those 2 motions. Because we had not yet had a hearing date set, the people's response had not yet been due, so I wanted to discuss with counsel a briefing schedule and scheduling a substantive hearing on those 3 motions. I also wanted to, there were references in the pleadings to potential meet and confer process between the parties to see if they had had any luck in narrowing the issues that the court may have to.
December 24th, 2002. A quiet cul-de-sac in Modesto, California, is draped in Christmas lights, but behind the door of 523 Covenant Avenue, the air is deathly still. A golden retriever named Mackenzie is found wandering the street, his leash trailing behind him like a ghost. Inside the house, a dinner of fruit and cereal sits untouched. Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant and days away from motherhood, has vanished into thin air. Her husband, Scott, claims he was 90 miles away, fishing in the cold gray waters of the San Francisco Bay. It is a story that began as a frantic search for a missing girl and ended as one of the most polarizing double murder cases in American history. A tale of secret lives, concrete anchors, and a web of lies that stretch from the suburbs to the shoreline. Welcome to Coldtrail Crimes. Today, we are peeling back the layers of a facade that captivated a nation. We are diving deep into the forensic timeline, the psychological cracks, and the modern-day legal battles that continue to haunt this case decades later. This is the definitive investigation into the life and trial of Scott Peterson. Before we begin the descent into the evidence, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications. Our mission at Coldtrail Crimes is to honor the victims and scrutinize the facts that the headlines often miss. If you are ready to look past the mask, let's get started. The morning of Christmas Eve in Modesto usually smells like pine needles and wood smoke, but for Laci Peterson, it was supposed to be the final countdown to the birth of her son, Connor. She was 27 years old, a woman whose smile was described by friends as the brightest thing in any room. By all accounts, she was glowing. At 9:30 a.m., Laci spoke to her mother, Sharon Rocha, on the phone. They talked about the Christmas brunch they were planning for the next day. Laci was upbeat, cheerful, and grounded. That was the last time a member of her family would ever hear her voice. According to Scott, the morning was routine. He claimed Laci was watching a cooking segment on television while he loaded his boat, a 14-foot game fisher he had recently purchased in secret, to go fishing for sturgeon. He told police he left around 9:30 a.m., headed for the Berkeley Marina, nearly 90 miles away. But as the sun began to set over Covina Avenue, the silence at the Peterson home became deafening. At 6:01 p.m., the first call to the Modesto Police Department came in. It wasn't Scott who called. It was Laci's stepfather. When the first responding officers arrived, they didn't find a crime scene, but they found something far more unsettling, a house that felt staged. The dog, Mackenzie, had been found by a neighbor earlier that morning, wandering with his leash on, a sign that Laci's walk had been interrupted almost before it began. Inside the home, Detective Al Burkini noted a series of anomalies that didn't fit the profile of a panicked husband. Scott's demeanor was the first red flag. He wasn't frantic. He was polite, distant, and oddly calm. He told police he had been fishing, yet when asked what he was fishing for, he couldn't seem to name the lure or the specific bait he used. Even more chilling was the state of the kitchen. A mop stood against the counter, and the floor was still damp. In the laundry room, a load of Scott's clothes was already spinning in the washer. To the investigators, it looked less like a home waiting for a pregnant wife to return, and more like a scene that had been scrubbed clean of her presence. As the clock ticked past midnight and Christmas Day began, the search shifted from the neighborhood to the nearby parks. Hundreds of volunteers turned out, clutching flashlights in the winter fog, calling Laci's name. But while the community searched, Scott Peterson sat in his truck, shielded from the cameras, making a series of phone calls that would eventually dismantle his perfect husband persona. The police were already looking at the Berkeley Marina. They weren't looking for a fisherman, they were looking for a burial ground. Because in the world of criminal profiling, there are no coincidences, only patterns that haven't been fully mapped yet. And Scott Peterson was about to become the most mapped man in America. As the calendar turned to January 2003, the frantic search for a missing pregnant woman evolved into something much darker, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. While the public saw a grieving husband standing at vigils, the Modesto Police Department was beginning to see a man living a double life. The first major crack in the porcelain facade appeared on January 6th. A woman named Amber Frey, a massage therapist from Fresno, walked into the police station with a story that would turn the investigation upside down. She hadn't seen the news initially, but when she did, she realized the man she had been dating for months, the man who told her he was a widower and that this would be his first Christmas without his wife, was none other than Scott Peterson. Amber didn't just give a statement. She became the ultimate weapon for the prosecution. Under the guidance of the FBI, she began recording her phone calls with Scott. These tapes are some of the most chilling artifacts in true crime history. In one recording, while thousands were searching for Laci in the freezing rain, Scott is heard whispering sweet nothings to Amber, describing a vibrant future together and claiming he was celebrating New Year's Eve in Paris, watching fireworks near the Eiffel Tower. In reality, he was standing at a candlelight vigil for his missing wife in Modesto. The logic of Scott's defense began to crumble under the weight of his own words. If he were an innocent man, why would he tell a woman he had lost his wife weeks before Laci actually disappeared? It suggested premeditation, a mental clearing of the path for a new life. But the police needed more than just a moral failing. They needed physical ties to the water. They turned their attention to Scott's private warehouse, where he kept his boat. Inside, they found a disturbing scene. There was a bag of cement nearly empty and circular stains on the warehouse floor that matched the size of small anchors. Scott claimed he had made only one anchor for his boat. However, calculations based on the remaining cement suggested there was enough material for 5. Then came the forensic hair analysis. On the boat, tucked into the teeth of a pair of needle-nose pliers, investigators found a single strand of hair. It was later matched to Laci Peterson. Scott's defense argued that Laci had been to the warehouse and the boat before, but her family was adamant. Laci didn't even know he had bought the boat. The most damning evidence, however, was digital. A search of Scott's computer revealed that on the days leading up to the disappearance, he wasn't researching sturgeon fishing. He was researching the San Francisco Bay's tides, the depths of the water, and the direction of the currents near the Berkeley Marina. He was studying the very place where he would later tell police he spent his afternoon on Christmas Eve. As the weeks turned into months, the tension reached a breaking point. The golden couple narrative was dead, replaced by the image of a man trapped by a life he no longer wanted, calculating the exact moment the tide would be high enough to hide his secrets forever. But the Bay is a restless witness, and it was about to give up what Scott had tried so hard to bury. In mid-April 2003, the atmospheric pressure over Northern California shifted. A series of violent spring storms churned the depths of the San Francisco Bay, pulling at the secrets held in its silt. On April 13th, the remains of a male infant were discovered on the marshy shoreline of Richmond. The following day, a mile away, the remains of a female were found. The location was not random. It was less than 2 miles from the Berkeley Marina, the exact spot where Scott Peterson claimed he had been fishing on the day his wife vanished. DNA testing confirmed what the world already feared. Laci and Connor had been found. The discovery turned the investigation into a manhunt. Scott was intercepted by police in La Jolla, near the Mexican border. He had dyed his hair and goatee a startling blonde. Inside his Mercedes, police found $15,000 in cash, survival gear, 4 cell phones, and his brother's driver's license. To the authorities, this wasn't the behavior of a grieving father. It was the behavior of a man on the run. The trial, which began in June 2004, became a cultural phenomenon. The prosecution's case was a mountain of circumstantial evidence. They argued that Scott felt trapped by impending fatherhood and a domestic life he never truly wanted. They pointed to the cement anchors, the title research, and the calculated lies to Amber Frey as proof of a cold, methodical plan. The defense, led by high-profile attorney Mark Garagos, fought back with a burglary theory. They pointed to a house across the street from the Petersons that had been robbed on the same morning, suggesting a cult or a group of criminals had kidnapped Laci. They argued that there was no smoking gun, no murder weapon, no cause of death, and no blood in the house. But the jury looked at the logic of the location. Out of the thousands of miles of coastline in California, the bodies of Scott's wife and son washed up in the very spot he had chosen to visit on the day they disappeared. On November 12, 2004, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder for Laci and second-degree murder for Connor. Scott was sentenced to death, but the story didn't end in the death chamber. For 20 years, the case has lived on in the appellate courts. In 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned his death sentence due to errors in jury selection, though his conviction remained. Today, the case has entered a new chapter. The Los Angeles Innocence Project has taken up Scott's cause, pointing to a burnout van found near the home and requesting new DNA testing on a blood-stained piece of duct tape. They argue that the original investigation suffered from tunnel vision. Yet for the Rocha family and the millions who followed the case, the evidence remains a haunting circle that always leads back to the water. Scott Peterson remains behind bars, maintaining his innocence, while the quiet cul-de-sac in Modesto remains a symbol of a dream that turned into a nightmare. The mask may have slipped, but the debate over what truly happened in that house on Covenant Avenue continues to ripple through the American consciousness, much like the tides of the San Francisco Bay. The Scott Peterson case, once thought to be a closed chapter in true crime history, has undergone a startling resurgence in 2024 and 2025. This new era of the investigation is defined not by the emotional testimony of the past, but by the cold, microscopic precision of modern forensic technology. The entry of the Los Angeles Innocence Project into the fray has shifted the narrative from a settled conviction to a complex legal battleground centered on missing pieces of the original puzzle. At the heart of this modern development is the quest for DNA testing on items that were either ignored or technologically out of reach in 2004. Most notably, the defense has secured the right to test a piece of duct tape found on Laci Peterson's remains. The theory suggests that if DNA from a third party, someone with a violent criminal history, is found on that tape, it could substantiate the long-held defense claim that Laci was abducted by strangers rather than killed by her husband. Furthermore, investigators are looking back at a burnt-out orange van found in the vicinity of the Peterson home on the day of the disappearance, a lead that the Innocence Project argues was never fully exhausted. In August 2024, the court proceedings reached a fever pitch as a judge granted the testing of the duct tape, but denied requests to test over a dozen other items from the original crime scene. This partial victory for Scott Peterson's legal team has created a polarized atmosphere. Supporters of the conviction argue that these are merely delay tactics intended to cloud a mountain of circumstantial evidence, while advocates for Peterson believe this is the first step toward a potential exoneration. As we move through 2025, the legal community is waiting on the results of these forensic tests. These developments have forced a re-examination of the tunnel vision accusation often leveled at the Modesto Police Department. Whether these new findings will be enough to overturn a 2-decade-old verdict remains to be seen, but they have undeniably reignited a national conversation about the finality of justice and the evolving power of DNA. For the Peterson and Rocha families, the wounds of 2002 have been pulled open once more, proving that in the world of true crime, the trail rarely ever goes completely cold. If you found this deep dive into the Peterson case insightful, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Does the new DNA evidence change your perspective on Scott's guilt, or is the circumstantial case still too strong to ignore? For more investigative breakdowns into the cases that redefine justice, subscribe to Coldtrail Crimes and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.